each introduce ourselves, maybe? All right.
All right. The mic to one another.
Yeah, let's do that then. Talk about who we are and what brings us here.
As a whole, you can get there. You guys, if you have any questions throughout, just feel free to raise.
And the future of sign painting.
That's pretty heavy.
What calls us in? Well, I'm Damon Styer, and I own New Bohemia Signs. That's been running in San Francisco since 1992. I came aboard as an apprentice in summer of '99, and through weird twists of fate ended up owning it by December of that year, and have been gradually accumulating the amount of whatever practice and skill and knowledge, whereby I might say I sort of know what I'm doing to the extent that I can help other people learn to do it. And everyone else here are people who are learning how to do signs, due to their own practice, and occasionally asking me questions, and so forth and so on.
And an old-timer apprentice from a long while ago.
I should say everyone here either worked for or has worked for New Bohemia Signs, everyone on the panel, at some point in the past. And with that, here's Josh Luke, currently of Best Dressed Signs in Boston.
Yep, my name is Josh Luke of Best Dressed Signs. Just so happened that we were in town this weekend, so it worked out pretty well to come and visit some of my old buddies and co-workers and see the show, which is great. And my wife, Meredith Kasabian, and I have been running Best Dressed Signs in Boston for 4 years now. And I started at New Bohemia Signs in around 2005. And when New Bohemia was still pretty small and not known as well as it is now. And it's been pretty exciting for me to watch it grow and to see what has become of New Bohemia Signs, and it's really been a lot of inspiration for us in building our own business on the East Coast. And Damon, I basically owe everything to this man here for teaching me what the skills that have allowed me to flourish on the East Coast and start my own sign business. So anyway, with that, I will continue and pass it this way, perhaps.
Yeah. Pickles, hyperbole.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Pickles. I think I've been at New Bohemia 2 years now. Is that right? Somewhere around there.
Close.
Yeah. So I have my own artistic practice. I do oil painting and drawing and stuff like that, and then got into sign painting and apprenticed at the shop, and then now I work there. And I don't know. I make a lot of art that has text in it, other than sign painting, so this was kind of a nice natural segue into doing that. Yes, the 5 pieces right there. All right, yeah. Everyone in here, buy a piece.
Price to move.
All right. Now you.
My name's Heather Hardison. I've been with New Bohemia Signs 4 years, and I started there shortly after I finished school in North Carolina. And I didn't really know what I was going to do with myself after finishing a degree in art and design. And it was like right as the economy had kind of gone to shit, and so nobody would take me, but Damon did. And I felt like I needed more skills, and I had a very generalist degree, and I learned a lot about design and typography at New Bohemia. I also do illustration and have been incorporating more and more hand lettering into my illustration work, and so it's been fun to learn this craft, and then also to find other applications for hand painted letters.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I've been at New Bohemia about 5, maybe 6 years now. And lettering has sort of always been a big part of my life, but prior to New Bohemia, I'd never really picked up a paintbrush or learned sign painting kinds of lettering. I was more involved with either digital lettering or pen and ink. So So it's been a wonderful learning experience and a good way to take practical analog skills to be able to use them in real applications beyond just computer or design. Mine, I have two that are sort of based on travel posters or sort of based on loosely national parks things from the mid-century. Yeah.
Global warming.
Global warming, yeah. I like the idea that, you know, at one time it was visit these very natural, wonderful places, and then, you know, now maybe it seems like the urge is to visit them more before they all burn down or, you know, or get bought up by multinational corporations or what have you. So that's sort of the impetus for where these started for me.
Yeah, has it been the title of the show that we're celebrating the end of right now is Everything Must Go? Did I mention that earlier? I don't know. Everything must go. So everything, the inspiration behind the signs in the space are both temporary signage that you'd see in the windows of shops that are announcing, you know, either grand opening or everything must go, clearance sale, or also broader notions of apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic themes that you know, in the sense that everything ultimately must go, dust to dust and such. And hopefully that comes through in just about everything you see on the wall to some extent or another, or sign painting's role in announcing or communicating that.
Do you all have artistic training in your background? Did you go to school for art? Or that's what I find fascinating about sign painting is it's this practical thing, but it's also an art thing. Mm-hmm. Did you come to it from which direction did you come into sign painting? Are you in a union?
No. No, you know, I know there's a sign makers union in San Francisco, and I've only talked to a couple of people over the years who are in the union. No one has come knocking on the door with weaponry, muscling me into the union. But from what I understand, the sign makers union in San Francisco is mostly involved in putting up temporary displays for convention booths at Moscone Center and things like that. I don't know. Is anyone else here in the crowd in the sign makers union? No, not you. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry to say because I'm intrigued. I mean, it's hard for me to figure out since I'm the shop owner. I guess I'm management, so I guess I don't know if I belong in the union, but I'm. You know, I would encourage my workers to unionize if it felt like, you know, I've actually, I've just recently started asking questions of one of our clients, Rainbow Grocery, who's situated just a few blocks from us in San Francisco, are a workers' cooperative, worker-owned co-op, and have been since 75. And so I sent them an email like, how does that work? How would, you know, it'd be great to spread out my risk and not to mention my profits, such as they are. Honestly, no one's going to be making much more money if they join a worker-owned co-op. But I don't know. I haven't. No one here has especially like voiced a really strong interest in joining a workers-owned co-op. But I might force it on them. So, anyway, no, we're not in a union. Let's say one other sign painter just showed up is Ashley Fundora, and we'll allow her to introduce herself before we get on with that question about. Maybe you can include in your introduction your artistic training and/or background that led you to here.
Sure. Hi guys, sorry I'm late. Bart was running late, but Brielle saved the day and came to get me a few blocks away. I'm Ashley. Started the shop 2.5 years ago. I apprenticed for about 9 months. But before that, before I moved to San Francisco, originally I'm from Miami, went to art school in Savannah, studied painting, kind of specialized in figure and portrait painting, moved to New York and studied there for a year under some artists, kind of felt strongly connected to lettering, and when my boyfriend and I decided to move to San Francisco, just noticed all the beautiful hand-painted signage, and wanted to figure out who was doing that and how I could find a way to study under someone that was doing that, and found the shop, New Bohemia Signs, and sent them my portfolio, and then the dream kind of started, and been studying under Damon and teaching me all the tricks of the trade, and it's been great studying with these guys, hanging out.
How many people have gone through your shop? I've met a couple that have come through and said, I took a class there, or I interned there for a little bit, or I did some work there.
Well, as far as employees and/or apprentices, I probably haven't had more than a dozen really in the entire time that I've been there. For the longest time it was just me and one helper, and then gradually with Josh we expanded that to two helpers, two coworkers. Josh worked there most of the time, the entire time you were there, pretty much until the end. You were working along with Jeff Canham, who would have liked to have been here today, but his wife fell ill and wasn't able to make it today. But with Jeff and Josh helping, then it just seemed like we need at least two.
And, we had Talba Auerbach was who I learned about the opening for an apprenticeship, because she was getting ready to leave and concentrate on her fine art, and she told me about she was looking for somebody to take over her position at the shop, and so I was like, immediately, just to go into your last question, like I had gone to school for painting, and I was always really interested. I was like really interested in the classical painting, and I was really interested in Caravaggio and that kind of like in the old methods of learning a trade, like when you study under a master painter. So it just seemed like very rare to find something that was still happening, in this now, an apprenticeship system that was somewhat similar to that, except for I wasn't I wasn't a whatchamacallit. I didn't have to live with Damon, and back I didn't have to sell myself to Damon, which was nice. But anyway, I found that very appealing, and so when Talba told me about it and I went in, I was like, it just really made sense. Like, it just seems like such a cool craft that not that many people at the time knew about or were excited about. So it was like this really hidden thing that I felt like I just discovered, and with all these after going to school for painting, all the techniques were so different that it was really exciting for me to learn all these different techniques that I had not known about previously. So that's my story into starting up with Damon. And the most important thing that I found is that you just have to stick with it in the beginning and just don't give up and just keep on coming in. I think that's the thing with Damon and a lot of the apprentices. Like, it seems like if they just kept on coming in, eventually you would end up just working there. Like, Damon just kind of does his own thing a lot of the time, and then you would just come in, and if you keep on coming in, eventually you're... Yeah.
Seem to be picking it up.
Yeah. So I just kept on coming in, and I was being dedicated to it ever since. Yeah.
Apprenticeship situation is pretty rare. I'm curious, how does that work in your shop? Like, somebody rolls in,
it's not
like a really basic chore, like, can you prime this panel or something?
Yeah, no, we don't really get into too many details like that. It's more like just start practicing brush lettering, and if you can manage to show up at least maybe twice a week, preferably more. If you could do it daily, excellent, but like just a half hour or more, but on a regular basis, and keep. That's the way it seems to have begun to function by default, not through any particular plan, but apprentices, who we look at, talk to, and deign to, I don't know, that could happen. Allowed to come back, will come in regularly and practice for some small portion of time on a regular basis, and you're just kind of trying to build up muscle memory and get your hands to figure out how to make letters such that you don't have to wait for the message to get all the way from your hand up to your head and back. Just I don't know how different ways of talking about that, but. Basically, if they keep showing up, after a while, they seem to be getting more and more proficient. They're showing, some kind of aptitude is apparent, and then we'll get into, we need these boards rolled out, and I'll tell you what, I'll pay you to do that, and then so on from there.
Are you either a really giving person, or you get some free labor out of it?
Yeah, that's what I feel guilty of asking them to sweep floors and things like that. I haven't been really good at that. I mean, I know that traditionally that's how apprenticeships are supposed to work. Is that you come here and practice, and I'll give you some modicum of attention, and feedback, critical feedback about what you're practicing and how you might do it differently and or better or more efficiently, and then in return you take out my garbage.
Or clean the brushes with Jasco.
Or clean the brushes, yeah. Or clean with Jasco, clean the dried paint out of the brushes that we've left sitting around. Please, everyone, turn off your cell phones. Just. We just aren't quite so. I have trouble asking people to do work for free. I feel like that's not really legal, is it? I'm a bit confused about how an apprenticeship works, and that's primarily because. Your lives are rejuvenated. Time to play again. I came here to New Bohemia Signs looking for an apprenticeship, and actually I was originally looking for an apprenticeship in woodworking and called a number of cabinetry shops in the Bay Area because I'd built a lot of furniture in my home but didn't really have any kind of finishing skills. The cabinetry shops that I called didn't want to take on an apprentice who didn't already have experience, which obviously they weren't very clear on the concept of apprenticeship either. So I walked into the sign shop looking for an apprenticeship, and the guy who was managing at the time said, "Oh, yeah, come in tomorrow and we'll pay you $7 an hour." And he obviously wasn't clear on the concept of apprenticeship either. So I had a job suddenly, and the only apprenticing requirement there was really that I come in a half hour beforehand and on my own time for a half hour practice lettering, and then he'd have me sealing the edges of boards or rolling things out or getting things ready for him to letter or perforating patterns and things like that. So I was doing odd jobs, but I was spending a half hour of my own time practicing everything, and that's more or less what I'm asking these people to do is come in and spend a half hour practicing. We've got enough people and painters on staff right now that I do pay people to take out my garbage and stuff, and I'm hard pressed to get this guy who I'm not paying anything to just I don't know what. So I don't ask for. I guess generally the apprentices, such as they are, have been kind enough that they'll do something if I ask them to. Anyway, Where are we in this conversation? What?
I don't have to take your garbage out. I'm going to come.
Yeah, you're right.
I was just going to back to the educational background thing. Yeah. I studied art and design, and it was neither here nor there, and I really needed further guidance towards honing a particular skill set. And so when I found the shop, that was such a great way to continue my education post-graduation without having to continue to pay. And so, Damon is very generous with his sharing his skills and having us come in, and it was just a stroke of luck. I think I feel like that's probably how all of us feel about how we got involved with the shop.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Josh was about to leave when I started the shop. I think we overlapped a couple months, very little. He showed me some basic how to palette your brush and things like that. It was. I just feel it was for me a stroke of luck because I saw on that was like the Sign Painter movie, which we screened here, had just started production at the time, and there was some stuff on the internet about it, and I was like, wow, that's the thing that I've been looking for. And then I just like called and I was like, can you show me? And Damon was like, yeah, just come by. I was like, okay. And later Scott, who's the manager of the shop, was like, if I had answered, I would have told you we couldn't take you. So I was just like, again, like very lucky.
Scott's the bad cop.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, we have another sign painter showed up. Is Caitlyn Galloway, who's worked with New Bohemia for a number of years, and you can introduce yourself more fully and kind of explain what artsy background brought you to this line of work.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I started at New Bohemia in like 2007. Probably a similar story to what everyone else here told. Just was enthusiastic about signs. I think it was just before the like most recent swell of interest in sign painting, and I saw someone installing a sign over near my house in the Mission and was really excited about it. And before then had kind of thought about maybe trying to do some sign painting, but didn't know that it actually existed at the caliber that it did at New Bohemia. And so through seeing that sign being installed, asked who did it, found out about Damon and New Bohemia, and just walked in after pulling together what I felt back then was a portfolio, but I look at now and feel really embarrassed that I called it that. And I just asked Damon if he could take an apprentice. And at that time, it was a smaller shop. It was just Damon and Josh and Jeff, and that was it. And then one thing led to another. Practicing once a week led to a little bit of work, and then a little bit of work led to a little more. And yeah, it's been, I guess, 7 years. My involvement with the shop at this point is limited. Just I have my hands dipped in a lot of other things, but yeah, that's my story.
Strange but true. Does any of this elicit any questions? Yes, at least one.
So, can you tell me about your clients? Because I live in a condo, I want to take everything down and have to do it.
Do you say again? You live?
I live in a condo that has
Okay.
like all this plastic signage, and I want to take everything down and have you guys do signage first.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I was shot at it, but I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Well, I can't say as I've been hired by any homeowner associations yet, but it's no. I actually have. We have done address signage in particular. I'm sure you're talking about maybe more multifarious signage needs, but we've done like gilded address numbers on condo developments where all three different flat owners in one building had to get together and kind of figure out, yes, is this worth what we're going to pay for to have this done in gold leaf? Is this going to project the image that we want for our new old condo? Whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we do work like that. I mean, I would say most of our clients are small businesses locally, but we have a steady stream of people who need just address numbers, for instance, and or no parking signs, and we do lots of roll-up doors on apartment buildings and telling people we tow 24 hours. We're also lately been. Someone else described us as sign painters to the tech industry. We're probably not alone in that regard, but we get a lot of jobs from which is it's a good place to be in San Francisco area right now, because there's a whole lot of tech industry mavens, awash in cashew, who also seem to have some taste or desire for handcrafted goods in their immediate visual area. So we get a lot of calls for jobs. Oftentimes, just writing conference room names, which are inevitably some sort of inside joke and pun, which we are glad to gild and/or paint on their doors, and. I think so. Yeah, we got I'm going out this next week to Facebook to paint a sign somewhere down there, and the people Facebook's a good example. The design team there goes out of their way to find reasons to have this job hand painted, and then they'll give us a call for that, and that's pretty handy. And Josh has gotten work from them on the East Coast too. They're nationwide. Hell, they're worldwide.
I have a question. Go ahead.
There's this common misconception that sign painting is a dying trade and that nobody does it anymore. But if you look at this panel and the youth on the panel, it makes you wonder, well, two things. Is it really dying? And the second thing is, where are all the old dudes?
Mm-hmm. There's at least one sign painter. This is someone older, I know. I recognize your face from...
What is your name?
Do I need my kit or a portfolio or something for creds? I'm Daryl Burson, and my AKA, I guess, is the Little Wonder Sign Works, and I've been working here mostly in the East Bay for about 35 years, mostly just as a solo act. But the reason that, to answer your question, the reason why it seems to be a dying art is that all of the computerized stuff started taking over, and it priced us right out of the market in a lot of instances. You know, the guys that were the previous generation to me, they did feel it. You know, just really start to just go in on itself. You know, all the big shops closed, and it left a handful of guys that just were on their own, and they would partner up with each other and like that. And there's a few surviving shops and stuff. One notable exception is Hamilton Broadway signs up here in Oakland on 40th and Broadway. And what happened was that Lady Leslie that runs the place now, she came on as this guy's assistant. He was starting to go deaf, and he was great painting, you know, and stuff, but he couldn't answer the phone anymore. So she came on, and she was an art student and everything, and eventually she learned from Sam and Larry McLaughlin, and learned the trade from him, from one of these old guys, which is these days, I guess, a pretty rare thing to actually have that an unbroken line between the previous generation, be actually taught from, because I was more or less self-taught. Now, I started with the production company that did the Renaissance Pleasure Fair. And the first type style that I ever conquered was Old English. A little different angle coming at it and stuff, but you know, hey, you take what you can get. And the job grew up around me, and I grew into the job, and we started doing the Dickens Christmas Fair too, and that was all of the turn of the century stuff, you know, Victorian faces and stuff, which was a very rich font of font. I didn't mean to pun that. Yeah, all of the fonts were of a font knowledge, you know, for me. And there were a couple of old typesetters and stuff around here in the Bay Area too that were forthcoming about sharing some of their old fonts and things like that. And so, but it has been very hard, you know. I've never been able to lock in with a group of people. It seems like, you know, this is what you guys are doing, and I'm seeing a kind of a revival happening with the young people, and it is a group thing that's happening. You know, it isn't just a couple of isolated. It would have been almost impossible, I think, for just single people to do what I did. You know, but this was wonderful. I'm seeing.
So did it already die and now it's coming back?
I've been saying for it feels like half a decade or more now that I mean that's what people still to this day will say. Oh, it's great that this dying art's being kept alive, and it's like I don't think it's so much a dying art anymore. Anyway, for the last half decade or so, I feel like I've just been saying it so much that it's a cliche, but I feel like there was a winnowing that I'm sorry, what was your name again? Daryl. That Daryl just addressed. You know, in the early '80s when vinyl technology came online and people who weren't ready to jump into investing in the tools that you needed for that were their business is drying up because other sign makers could do it for less than sign painters, and people didn't really appreciate the beauty of the hand-painted sign because all signs were hand-painted prior to that, and it just wasn't that big a deal. And gosh, where was I going with this? I feel yes, right. Okay, it's not dying. I don't know. For the last 3 years, like we've been teaching at least every month, a group of 10 people are passing through New Bohemia, taking a workshop in introduction to brush lettering, and at least 3 of those people have gone on to open their own, hang out their own shingle as sign painters in different parts of the country, and also in San Francisco. Competition. That's what. When I started, that's people were saying, "So why are you training your competition?" I was like, unless they all start to open sign painting schools, they're not necessarily competition at this point. So I don't.
Well, that's an important development too, of having actual classes and everything happening, because is the only way to pass it on for the next generation. Be able to hire them on, and usually it took a fairly large shop to support an apprentice, somebody coming on that level and everything. You need to be able to pay them a living wage. You couldn't. This is not an amateur outfit. You have to make a living doing this and stuff. So it was very difficult to find. That was the beauty of the old guild system. You had the masters and journeymen and apprentice system and like that, and it was a flow of people coming through and everything. But or shops and everything, it was very difficult to get people in.
Yeah, that's. You can see this story arc is made plain in that Sign Painters movie that we screened here, and that is, I think, streaming on Netflix. Can anyone confirm that? I heard that it was streaming. I don't know. If it's not streaming on Netflix, you can download it at signpaintersfilm.com anyway, and watch it in the privacy of your home, or see it somewhere. I don't know. I know it's screening next month in Sonora at a Letterheads meet, which is another thing that came to mind while you were speaking, Daryl, was there are organizations such as the Letterheads that have regular meets in different parts of the country and are there to support and encourage interest in sign painting, and also recently Josh and his wife Meredith have started their own organization, the Pre-Vinylite Society, which is similarly themed. And if you want to say anything about the Pre-Vinylites and.
Meredith, can you handle this one? She's better at that one.
I was hoping that the lady Judy Grossman was going to be here.
She felt ill. She felt ill and was not able to make it today.
I have a message from her.
I have a message too to read.
Yeah, I'll read it. It came in from the mission control over there.
You got it? Okay.
It says,
Hi all. Hi all. Glad to see you folks out talking this up. I was hoping to be there today, got sick, and didn't want to give you all kudos. I started painting signs in 1980. Yep, I started really saying I was a sign painter in 86. Loved it. Went to my first letterhead meet at Product Sign Supplies in 1986 and met my first bunch of sign painters. Just want to give you all kudos for doing things the old-fashioned way. I've been up in Sonora since then, inviting you all to come up the weekend of October 10th to 12th. That's Judy Grossman.
Yeah, that's... I wanted to point out too, and what she wrote to me was, yes, she's been blah blah blah. What am I saying? What was I looking for? I broke into the sign business when there were hardly any women sign painters, and I encourage you to note the gender makeup of this panel. When there were hardly any women sign painters. Now it makes me so happy to see so many out there respected for what they're doing. I had to claw my way up for respect, and I had a blast doing it. Letterhead meets used to happen all over the country in various regions, and once a year internationally. They're seeing a resurgence because of people like us who are striving to keep the craft alive. It's my extreme pleasure to be hosting this meet next month from October 10th to 12th. Darn it, don't look away from your phone when you're talking from it. With the intention of sharing and passing on the artistry that has been learned, and believing that it is our responsibility to learn and share this knowledge for the better perpetuation of it in the future. Glad to see it reviving, etc.
And it would
to that end, there's the letterheads.
Really be worth your while. If you're into this in a serious way, those letterhead meets especially the people that come to speak there and everything. We're talking masters.
We're missing one this very weekend in Petaluma.
Oh, there's a shop in Petaluma called Letterheads, and so they're having a little gathering of their own. Oh, gee. Why am I here and not over there? No, but the quality of the work that you see in those meets like that. I mean, these are the success stories. You know, these are the guys that are just absolute masters and giants in the trade. And it would be, if you're seriously into doing this kind of work and everything, and you know, striving for excellence and stuff, it would be a worthwhile investment to get up there to see these folks, and they will give demonstrations and stuff. They actually see them doing it.
And also to that end,
this has been a paid advertisement
for the letterheads. And Meredith was about to talk about the Pre-Vinylite Society, which is more about I would think you're about to say, an aesthetic appreciation of your environment, and than sign painting specifically per se.
So hi, I'm Meredith. I run Best Dressed Signs with Josh here in Boston. So the Pre-Vinylite Society was this idea that Josh had when we first moved to Boston, and it's the name Pre-Vinylite is a pun or a play on the Pre-Raphaelite. So it's more like it's not specifically sign painting. It's more kind of like an artistic thing. I don't know what it is really. It's just a thing. It was just a Facebook page, and now it's like, I don't know. It's a community. It's a community for like sign enthusiasts, and I think that's the major difference between. I mean, there's many differences between the Letterheads and the Pre-Vinylite Society, but the major thing is that the Pre-Vinylites are sign enthusiasts and other kinds of people that are interested in like public art and like just basically being aware of like your aesthetic built environment. Whereas the letterheads are they're sign painters, and their mission is to like carry on the trade. We're just kind of a community of people that are interested in signs, and we put on art shows, and there's like a zine that's about sign painting that's under the Pre-Vinylite name. It's kind of a nebulous thing right now. We're like
there's so many people that are excited about sign painting right now, and it's just. Saying there's so many people that are excited about sign painting right now, and it's kind of like I don't know. I think we just wanted to do something that's fun and just like get all these people that are excited about sign painting, and just try to like feed off of one another and connect them. And there is a lot of a new generation of sign painters coming up. And it's been, I feel like the Pre-Vinylite Society is kind of hopefully like connecting that new generation. And it's also, I mean, speaking of, it's a very intimidating craft to get into, just because there are a lot of, people who have been doing it for a long time and do know the trade, and are weary a little bit of the newcomers. Which rightfully so. I mean, it's what's that? It all's like and I think that basically I was intimidated, and I felt like I wanted to kind of bond with other newcomers that were like excited about it and intimidated, and just say, well, it's okay. We can like. F up here and there because you're going to, and you're bound to make mistakes, but it'll be all right. And along the way, let's just have some fun, paint some signs, and just enjoy each other's work and be inspired. So that's the main goal of it, and that's it.
It's very specific form of painting, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm an abstract expressionist.
Yeah.
You can get away with doing whatever you want. And with sign painting, if you don't have a particular set of skills and technique down, it really shows, right? And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
They're still learning.
It's important to note that there was a time when sign painting was the norm and sort of the primary form of sign making. And with a lot of sort of technologies that have replaced craft, once the technology is in place, the craft becomes more of an artistic practice. And I think that that's what you're seeing in terms of a resurgence of sign painting now. As Damon mentioned, there was sort of a winnowing of people. Well, it's true, vinyl took over, computers took over a lot of these things, and so what is left is people who had a real passion for the lettering and for the painting. And so what you see as a result of that is better quality and things that have a more artistic base, whereas if you look back at the 50s and 60s, like any old Joe was painting signs, and they didn't necessarily look good, and they just didn't necessarily represent the craft in the best possible way. So, when I talk to, say, an older generation, my family's generation, for example, they don't necessarily see sign painting as a vulnerable craft. It's the kind of thing that you would have seen just really sloppily painted on fruit stands or at the auto repair shop or something. And so sometimes you say, "Oh, I'm a sign painter," and people are like, "Oh, really? That's what you do?" And and why don't you use computers, or why aren't you using vinyl? Isn't that cheaper or better or something? And so I think it's the same thing that's happened with other crafts in a lot of ways, like photography, for example. There's people who are very highly skilled in digital photography, and yet there's people who have honed traditional photography to an art form now, and it's taken more of a vulnerable place now that the commercial aspects of it have sort of become a different path. And I think woodworking, which you mentioned, is probably another thing like that. These sort of apprentice-based crafts.
Yeah, you can focus on unique artistic furniture instead of IKEA cranking out a bunch of cheap bookshelves.
Absolutely, right.
I think also along those lines, partly the having a shop and a community and like the Pre-Vinyl Society letterheads and also just like your apprenticing people is something that I think a lot of artists don't have right now. And that has, for me at least, been a huge deal. When I was at school, I felt like that I didn't have any mentor and I didn't have any like direction for my work, and I was really, really interested in the craft of whatever I was doing. So whether it was oil painting or pen and ink drawing or whatever, and I felt like that a lot of people weren't interested in the craft part of it, they were interested in the conceptual part of it or whatever else, and I think that conceptual things are important to art, but craft is the thing that holds it all together. And I feel like being at the sign shop gives you that, like that you have this direction where I know that like if I pay attention and I do things the way they're supposed to be done, then they will be good and they will be right and I will feel happy with them. And that's not something that you get often when you make art. So,
and also if you're a studio artist, for example. As a sign painter, you don't necessarily have the luxury, because you're a commercial artist and that's goods for a client. You don't have the luxury of fretting a piece over and over and painting over it and throwing it away.
Or just popping an idea.
Yeah.
And being able to express yourself behind an idea. You have to have somebody commission you to do something.
Sure.
That's.
You could have your own artistic input, but then you have to make it. You have to make it look good, and then you have potentially you're installing it and it's going up for the world, and it's very grounded, and that's what I appreciate about you guys. You have technique and skill, and you get shit done because you have to. So.
So the thing about sort of unifying the appreciation and production, we're not sort of surrounded by hand lettering the way that I guess we used to 50 years ago. So how do you think about sort of collecting things that inspire you and the way that you produce?
Anyone?
Can you clarify? Yeah.
Well, I could ask you, what kind of lettering examples because I come from a typographic background, and one thing that really separates those two things is if I know all the fonts that are out there, because I'm weird like that. Right. But if you know that, then it's very clear when something's been done by hand because it has a little bit of the personality of the person who's actually doing the work. And attached to the kind of background that they have or whatever they're inspired by as far as lettering is concerned. So maybe there's certain lettering or styles of lettering that inspire you guys.
Definitely. I mean, it's like, well, I mean, for myself, this is Josh. I'm always like inspired by like turn of the century lettering and late 1800s, early 1900s, old sign books, lithography books, chromolithography, currency design. I just feel like that was like sort of a golden era of lettering and design, and it's pretty exciting to find some of those old books, although very hard to find now. Like when I first started at New Bohemia, you could get an Frank Atkinson book, which is like kind of a sought after sign painter letterer book, for like $30, and now it's going for like $400, and you have to fight to get it on eBay. So you have to find different avenues of finding, researching cool old lettering examples and design examples. But then I think if you have that like background of taking those older specimens, and once you learn that as like a foundation, and also just some of the great like sign, like E.C. Matthews is a great lettering sign painting instructor that was around probably in the, what was that, 30s or 40s? Yeah. Anyway, I think there is knowledge out there that you can find, and once you get that background, and study those examples, then I think from there you can expand your own style. And I think the biggest mistake that new sign painters often make is immediately trying to do something like extremely fancy. And that's definitely something that I've made a mistake doing before, but I've since and especially starting my own shop, and when I was working for New Bohemia, Damon was designing everything, so I was mainly learning technique, and I think it's the same way still. Once going out on my own, and really finding out what it takes to make a good-looking sign, I think the first mistake is just trying to do something like so awesome and elaborate, and and it ends up for some reason looking wonky or weird. So I think it's important to go back and study all that great cool lettering and design, but then trying to get like a foundation for learning lettering and design, and doing basic stuff first, and then expanding upon that, doing a little bit of adding a little ornament or something a little bit at a time. But I think I don't know if that was part of the question or but Damon, you want to add anything on there?
Oh, I don't know. So there's fancy type of signs our good friend Ken would call face melters, and you've got to churn one of those out every once in a while, or you completely lose respect and cred.
Damon, what era?
Ken loves face melters.
What era of lettering is there a specific style or era that inspires you?
For me, I'm probably leaning a little bit later than Josh does. I think that the sign shop, when I took it over, had built its reputation at that time on late Victorian, early 20th century styles of lettering, and so it behooved me to imitate that as closely as I could. But as I started incorporating more personally felt design interests in it, I think my letters hew a bit closer to mid-century kind of stuff. At least the stuff in this show, I think, is a lot more. Is googie the right word? Googie style? I don't know if that's quite it. Someone's googie-esque in some way. Yes. Is what Maxi? Bouncy. It's bouncy and googie. Yeah. That spirit took me over on this particular gig. And I think that the first ideas. Well, I mean, I'm kind of loath to lock myself into a particular era or something like that. I'm more intrigued by talking to the client and getting as much information as I can from them about what is it they want this to look like. Are they trying to make their Victorian look like it's a Victorian era Victorian, or what are they going for? And then try and tailor things to whatever cues, you know. At the same time, you can't expect a client to know what the difference even is between Deco and Nouveau, or, you know. So, you know, I try and pull visual references out of people and so forth, and then and try and be just completely equanimous. I will paint whatever fruity design you want me to paint, from anywhere from the 16th century on, and I will love it. So,
that's kind of like the.
What's the most mundane sign you made, and the most extraordinary? Anything ring a bell?
Oh, actually, right.
How about extraordinary?
I think Joshua will remember France.
What was one? Well, when I first, I always tell this story, but when I first started New Bohemia, Damon had me paint this lawyer's office. It was a paragraph of legal jargon on a white background, black lettering, Roman lettering that were inch tall letters, which in sign painting is gets pretty difficult, especially. That was one of my early signs that Damon said, "Here, you just go and paint this," and it was.
I've never picked the sign up.
So the sign, which I completely struggled with and had a mental breakdown halfway through, but yeah, it was always in the shop, and I always wondered if Damon was just messing with me, about, oh, here, paint this lawyer jargon, you know, let's see how you do. And I'm and this is one of my early signs, so I'm really concentrating. I'm this looks horrible, but so anyway, that was a pretty. But going back to what Damon was saying about style, I would think the most successful sign painter, which Damon is very successful, is able to adapt your style to whatever the client is. And if you can adapt your style and have a wide range of abilities, maybe you do some deco stuff, or maybe you do turn of the century or 60s, you know, some kind of modern, you know, if you can I always got afraid that I didn't have a particular style. But I think if you're a skilled sign painter, you're able to adapt to whatever the client is looking for in their signage, which is, I think Damon does very well. So.
It's incredible. You see so many different varieties. I see signs in the city, and I think, well, that's really nice, but I can't see New Bohemia because they don't do that stuff. Well,
yeah.
Tell me what to paint. I'll paint it.
Yeah, I find that experience, I think, is one of the things that whenever I'm feeling uninspired, I just sneak through Damon's sketchbook, and he has so many sketches in there of different styles of so many different styles of lettering, you know, just so much reference to look at there. And you know, being more of a newcomer to the sign painting world, I think that, you know, the longer that you're doing it and the more reference images you're looking at, and like Josh was saying, you know, trying to tailor your style to whatever the client needs is, I think, you know, a good way to be successful. So.
And this is probably one of the areas that you are able to deal with as a class situation. There's two elements that you need to be able to master to be a true sign artist. One is stroke, and it takes repetition. You don't want to hear this, you know, as students, you know, don't want to hear. For me, it was menus. You're given a style, you know, and then you start writing stuff, you know, over and over and over again, you know, and you run into different spacing situations and things, you know, all of the little oddments that come with a lettering style, and at the same time, you're developing a sense of what is a proper letter. Really learning what a serif face is like, and how they call it kerning and typesetting, you know, the spacing between letters and stuff. Tucking an A underneath the crossbar of a T but only just to the right amount so that you lose some of the negative space in between. You know, things that it just takes experience. You have to be in there slugging it out, doing it, you know, every day. It's like they say any craft or something like, what, 100,000 hours or something it takes to really master a craft. 10,000. 10,000. Okay, we'll take 10,000. I'm not even sure I'm up to 100,000. But yeah, and I don't. You shouldn't be mystified by it or put off by the fact that it takes a lot of work to learn how to do it. It's worth the work, you know. And for myself, it's been so satisfying. And I always say, I never get bored. I'm in love with the alphabet and all of the different forms and stuff, and it's been informed by the typesetting trades and stuff in all of the books that I've gotten, and it's just wonderful to see a renaissance beginning again too, and seeing that spark being fanned into a flame again, you know. And we have to learn to use the computer stuff as tools too. I'm rather limited in my ability to do that. I think Leslie Wood up there at Hamilton Broadway is probably better at it than I am, because she actually has a plotter and the tools to do that and actually use vinyl. I design stuff and shop it out to other people to have it cut and things like that, but and just using computer for layouts and stuff too, you know, learning to use Photoshop and some of these other design tools and stuff as a means to translating it into something that you will hand paint, and it's going to come out looking, you know, better because it's hand painted, but it also, you know, there's a makes it viable, commercially viable. This is what I'm trying to say. You can do jobs like that, you know, and get it done a little quicker and easily and stuff. So don't shy away from the new technology either, you know. Otherwise, I'd go back to being out in the dirt like I started out, you know, propping my stuff up on a hay bale, painting with my solar dryer.
If I can build on the original question, I think one of the styles that's most associated with painting is casual lettering, and we sort of all have, at least here, and I would guess that your experience is similar, had sort of started out learning that, and those are single stroke alphabets, and it is sort of a real basic way to be introduced to sign painting, and it's what Damon teaches in his classes. On the other hand, they all have something individual about them. Everybody's hand makes a different casual, and so I think that you know, any of us looking at another person's casual lettering here, at least, can sort of identify, oh, I think Caitlyn did that one, or, you know, or maybe Ken Davis did that. I can tell for sure. And so, you know, there's a part where, as an apprentice, you're sort of trying to imitate previous styles or the style of your master, you know, Damon in this case. And on the other hand, you know, once you've sort of gotten that, you do sort of want to build on yourself as opposed to somebody else's work, and sort of adapt that to what feels natural to you and to what looks right to you, whether it's, you know, the way the letters fit together in terms of kerning, or whether it's just the way you twist the brush at the end of a stroke and it forms something that's just enough different than somebody else's, or, you know, but still falls under this sort of visual canon of a sign painter's casual lettering. I think, you know, that's one thing that has appealed to a lot of people, both who take the classes that Damon teaches, and for, I think, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but for most of us personally, you know, just to be able to make something that feels a part of something bigger, but is also uniquely yours.
You guys have any questions before we wrap it up? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the durability and collectability of signs ever plays into your creative process. Because I guess the theme seems to be that it's always a temporary or time critical moment you're trying to capture captured on the signs, or it's supposed to be used for a certain period of time. But what we find is that even though it seems mundane when it's first being used and put up, over time, the value increases as it becomes it captures a moment in history and becomes vintage. So I'm wondering if that sort of plays into what you were, like you're thinking about, oh wow, like at first you want to have the client's wishes on the sign, thinking about, like, this is going to last for a long time. Like, you think about it is temporary, but it is going to last for a long time because it's made to be a semi-permanent sign. Has it ever kind of struck you that you need to do something extra to make it kind of stand out or to stand a test of time? I guess the second part of the question is, this particular gallery, these particular works, do you ever grapple with the question about that these signs themselves kind of memorialize sign making itself? Like they're capturing more of a time when sign making was popular, or is now popular.
I think that's the reason there's been interest in sign painting in terms of gallery shows and things like that. In terms of commercial practice, I'm not sure we're ever thinking about them showing up in flea markets later on or anything like that. But as a sort of tangential, answer to your question, there has been a lot of interest in producing signs that they look like they've been around a while, and we all kind of scratch our heads and sort of like, well, doesn't that just happen naturally, and at the same time, there's a whole creative practice built around trying to make something appear as if it's degraded or if it's old or something like that. And as much as we want almost exactly the opposite, for it to look shiny and new and like perfect for the client. So there's a weird sort of line that you straddle with that occasionally, at least with clients. Anybody else wants to address that at all?
Yeah, the paint that we use. I mean, we typically use one-shot lettering enamel here, and I don't know of any other brand of paint that is more opaque or built to last nearly as much. I mean, Ronin is another lettering enamel maker, but basically the type of paint that we're using is intended to be as color fast as possible and to adhere to its surface as long as possible. And all of these things are things that we're thinking about in terms of maybe a few decades. However, you'll find as you walk around San Francisco or any urban area that is undergoing any sort of rejuvenation or rebuilding process, that times buildings are torn down and other old buildings are exposed, and you see these ghost signs and other things. Right? Okay, those were obviously they were painted. They were probably not painted using one-shot enamel, but they were painted using some kind of one shot of its day, an enamel paint that was built to last for decades, probably not intended for centuries. It's barely lasted the centuries. Fortunately, this building was covered up by another building for a long time, and that has helped this thing literally weather the years. And it still looks, so charming. I wish my new sign would look like this ancient sign. But what you're not going to see much of or find nearly so attractive are ghost vinyl signs. Those look hideous as they age. They won't be around for any more than a couple of decades. Digital printing looks great. I can't even imagine it lasts a decade. I guess it depends on what kind of like urethane coating you put over top of it. I don't know if that's the inks that are in there aren't necessarily nearly as resistant to the effects of UV rays. They're going to fade a lot faster. But more germane to the eye of the needle through which sign painting has passed in the last couple of decades is vinyl specifically. Those things just peel off and leave this adhesive residue behind. There is no evidence of the actual color or of the letter or anything like that. It's just some gluey spunk, in there. Yeah, they start curling and peeling up and cracking and all. And even that's, especially when you're up close, is kind of attractive in some brief momentary. I don't know. Looks horrible. Ghost signs are attractive because they've been painted, and I don't expect our signs to last a century. These signs, you're going to keep these things. If you buy this off the wall, you're probably going to keep it inside. It's not going to weather very much. The boards that a lot of these are painted on are some kind of like particle board that's, little chips of wood held together with glue. I can't honestly tell you how long that's supposed to last, So no, I'm certainly not thinking about this in terms of centuries, and maybe Josh and Meredith and the Pre-Vinylites have on the books a show card focused show that's opening in October or November, early November, in Boston, and all the submissions for that are to be on poster board, which is something that sign painters have been doing, show cards and poster boards for decades. How much longer than decades? I'm not entirely sure. Like I guess maybe they're doing show cards in the 19th and 17th and 16th centuries. They look very different, obviously, than show cards from the 19th and early 20th century, but. Meredith's going to look into the history of this and get back to us. But I can't swear to you that the crescent boards cut in half into standard show card size are archival in any, that they're going to last centuries. That you might find Da Vinci's notebooks lasting. I can't say. I'm not striving for that. Yeah, just clients, and they need a sign that looks good now, even if they want us to sand. It's 40 years old already.
Well, thank you guys. I think everyone's metal stools are probably becoming uncomfortable. We'll wrap it up, but we're going to be here for a couple hours, so feel free to have some tea and hang out. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. That's great.